What's up? What's up? What's up? This is your boy Mike,
This is Josh.
and today is Wednesday the 20th. And isn't this weird?
Isn't that weird?
Oh, isn't that? I messed that up.
No. That was weird.
That was weird.
That was so weird.
Oh, okay. So today's topic is: does a person remain the same once they change?
Right. So, what happens when someone changes? Have you ever met someone a year ago, and then you met them yesterday, and they're a completely different person?
Right.
What the heck
Right.
happened?
Right. I think. Okay. Can I just jump into this?
Yeah,
You mind?
please.
Okay. Okay. So let's attack this question in two different angles: biologically and philosophically. Okay.
Okay.
Biologically, we are changing every day. New cells are dying. What was it? It was about like 50 billion cells die every day and gets replaced every day, right?
hmm
So technically, if we look at a biological sense through mitosis, we always are morphing. We're always a change. So biologically, we cannot be the same person. Now, philosophically, right?
I'm
Does
tracking you.
Okay, here we go. Does a being, if they are still, and the world keeps revolving, are they going to be that same person? If they did nothing in life, just say he gets person A gets out of bed. He got out of bed, right? So that's a change in itself.
hmm
But he gets out of bed and just sits on the couch and does nothing. Does that person change?
Well, no, I guess in a way because they're like changing with the same thing that they do all the time. Like it doesn't mean they're changing for the better, but maybe they're changing for the worse.
Maybe. How
hmm
about if person A does this same routine for a week?
Yeah, probably because they probably like gain a few pounds. They probably lose a little bit of muscle mass. Maybe they'd feel bored, like they'd feel like they want to get off the couch.
Right? Right?
So I
What
think
about a tree? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, so I think they'd change, but like maybe it's not the kind of change that most people recognize as change, or that even I recognize as change.
See, now that's interesting because it's like, what about trees? If we talk about, if we compare person A to a tree,
Uh,
you can't see you can see a tree grow, but you don't see the rings inside of a tree to tell you the life, right? How long that tree lived.
yeah, I think
One would
that's
ha-
I think that's dendrochronology.
right.
Yeah.
So all because we don't see it, does that mean that person hasn't changed or that plant hasn't grown?
No, it totally. I would say it totally means that it's grown and changed on the inside. Yeah, and it stayed
Totally.
in one place, kind of like the person on the couch.
Yeah, I would say so. Uh, but so I think we're going to agree on this. So, but the argument, let's talk about the argument. What doesn't change? The only thing, there's two things I think that doesn't change, even though it might be a slight change. Okay, let's just go into it. Situation number one: like you. Let's just use you and me for example. Okay, Josh is my mentor, right? I am trying to become a better person. Now, you are knowledgeable, and this is true in real life. You are knowledgeable, and you try to bestow upon me your knowledge. But I'm not trying to hear your knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So, does anything change? Does any part of the conversation between you and me change?
Yeah, I think like if we were talking and you're like, man, I'm not listening to that, I think what might change is like your resistance to wanting to listen. So like what happens, like for like an example, like an analogy, when like there's going to be a whole bunch of troops and they're going to go bust down the drawbridge of a castle. Well, the castle will reinforce their defenses with like extra men on the walls with bows and arrows. Maybe they'll put a moat with an alligator in front of the drawbridge. You know, whatever they do to reinforce it. I think that's sort of like what happens with the person that doesn't want to accept like the change of gaining knowledge, like in the example that you just gave. I think it would just be resistance.
Could we measure the person's intentions? So let's say that person, me, didn't want to hear you from the beginning. Now we perceive Mike to be willing to want to learn, all because he or me, this is weird, third person, but all because he approached the conversation. I think we think like, all because we're talking to somebody that supposed listener is supposed to be listening. When that is most likely not the case to all conversations. That's why we have a lot of miscommunication, because we hear what we want to hear. Now, if I were to approach that conversation in that circumstance, would anything have changed?
It's kind of like you said, how do you, it's like the rings on the inside of the tree. What are the person's rings? Like, what's changing on the inside? How do we even measure it? Well, I sort of think it's like the person's fruit, like what the fruit is in their life. So like I think like if someone doesn't want to listen, but maybe they say they want to listen, but they don't, I think you'll see that they get nowhere with the knowledge you gave them. But you didn't really give it to them because they didn't accept it. But that brings into a really good question. Is the person that wants to help the other person change, like let's say if I wanted to help you change and I had knowledge for you, do you think maybe it's me who's not offering good, like sound, valid knowledge, like good advice, or I'm not speaking maybe your same language in that instance?
Ooh, that is a good question. Is there a barrier in dialect through cultural differences? That is a good question. I think so. But there's so many differences. It's like a person can have a mental disorder where they're not cognitively understanding. Although they might seem like they appear to be cognitively understanding, but they're not. There's some type of mental issue. Yes, and then we cross the second scenario, we cross the cultural barrier.
It affects all the social understandings just because we both kind of understand the world differently because of our experiences.
Yes.
So
will a person,
maybe I'd have to go through change. Maybe I'd have to go through change.
I would think both parties would have to go through change, a mutual change. But then they have to accept that change.
I see this example, as I was telling you earlier on Facebook, of like, you know how we got a whole bunch of Facebook warriors of people that want to, like, they're just bragging on other people for how they don't like do what those Facebook warriors would like to see them do. Like I see this one lady on Facebook all the time that, you know, is just giving like liberals a hard time, and she's super pro-Trump. And yet in one post she may say that she's against the people, or like she basically wants to see people pro-Trump, and if they're not, like, boo on them. But in this next post she'll make some reference to like Jesus or something, and how like his forgiveness is so good, and like, you know, type amen if like you're you're a changed person or something like that because of him. But it's so ironic to me in that instance that she's not actually like extending that same forgiveness to those other like progressive liberal people. And I'm like wondering what kind of change does she need to experience to understand that like she's kind of being ironic and not offering the same forgiveness for others just because they're politically different.
Huh. Well, that's interesting, and that begs a new question, right? Are we hypocritical for judging the hypocritical? It's very weird. What is hypocritical? It's behaving in a way that suggests that one has a higher standard or more noble beliefs than which is the actual case. And I would like to share an example too. There over Facebook, man, social media should be another episode we should talk about thoroughly. Okay, but for this example, I have seen in many different social platforms, I won't name one, okay, that there is people that put their business out on these social networks and then complain when somebody dissects their social and public posts and they just blow up. It's like, why are you putting out valuable information about yourself, which is cool, do it, but know that it comes with a cost. And when we judge these people or respond to their posts, are we hypocritical for doing it?
Well, so here's my idea. I thought that what I'm going to do is, you know that saying, like, you got to be the change you want to see in the world?
Yes.
My goal is to, and I was actually working on it, was to make like one of the graphics that would look similar to like one of the posts she would make about like bragging on other people. But instead of bragging on other people, my post will say something like, "Are you ready for the 28-day forgive those as you forgive us challenge," right? Okay. And so the reason I'm saying that is because I think I'm making a judgment about that person because I think that something about them should change. But I realize if I just tell this person that she just needs to change, like I'm not in any different position than she is. And right. So where mine will, I hope it will be different, is that I'll be encouraging a kind of change that has nothing to do with discriminating others, right? And if you do discriminate, it's only, well, the idea is that the challenge is like, when she sees this post, hopefully she'll see it and she'll go, oh, the 28-day forgive us as we forgive those challenge, right? Right. And the idea will be like every day you pick someone that you would normally brag on and you just sort of like ask for forgiveness for them and like pray for them instead about the very thing that you feel passionate about in the wrong way. And so I guess at the end of the day is my hope is that like that's a change that happens like not through like my own disgust of someone else, but my own want to see them do better with what they're working with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that is, I guess that's what we have to ask ourselves when we bear witness to these posts, these what seems to be hypocritical posts. What are we trying to accomplish with our response? Are we trying to bring true change into our society by saying, hey, this is my opinion, this is your opinion, can we come together? Can we make an actual change, right? Not a temporary change. I think things could get temporarily changed. Like, for instance, wow, I got an A+ on my test. Mm-hmm. I don't have to study for my next test. My attitude and my beliefs that circle around the results of that test temporarily changed my previous teachings were.
Yeah,
I should,
yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. Can I go back to your analogy about the change in cells and in biology?
Yes, sir.
So it seems like in biology, change occurs with something that's already like there. So like this, like the person sitting on the couch has cells that like fat cells that could get bigger because they're not moving around, or they could get smaller because that person decides to get up and move around and burn calories. And so like the fat cells have to get smaller. I think in the philosophical sense then, change has to occur with something there that already exists. Like you can't just expect to add something, like you can't just expect to like throw away the thing you want to change. Like you have to do something with that thing you want to change. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. And the change that has to happen to us might not be easily visible. I'm sorry, miserable, but visible. It might not be able to see it with the naked eye, but that doesn't mean that change is not occurring. I think the only thing that doesn't change, I'm gonna throw this out there. Let's see what you think about this, okay? Yeah. I think the only thing that doesn't change would be the story of Jesus Christ. Now, to say that Jesus changed and transformed, being that Jesus is God and God is an entity in itself that created us. So to say that and I hate to be all in the religious, so I'm sorry to bring this up, but to say that Jesus had transformed would to be saying is that God himself needed a change. That's hypocritical. Because if something such as divine as God, which I believe in and you believe in, has to change in a matter to fit us.
No, I do disagree with that a little bit.
We're superior to that.
No, I do disagree with that a little bit. And my disagreement comes from I don't think so like you've heard that like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three like separate but three separate parts of the Trinity, but they're all a part of the Trinity, right? And they're all in agreement. Right. So like, I don't think God changed his mind. I just think that God serves his purpose as this like being of infinite knowledge, presence, and goodness. And if you read back to Genesis, the book of Genesis, in how it relates to everything else in the Bible, is that it says in the beginning, they made the earth and the heavens. It doesn't just say God made it. It says like they. That's including Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And what's interesting is that if that's the case, if that's the they, then Jesus, from the very beginning, when God, was making light and seeing that was good, we can say that's like the Big Bang.
Right.
We can say that he, from that very moment, knew that in 14 billion years, when, he'd finally get to be born as a little boy in Bethlehem, he would have the purpose of growing up to live only 33 physical human years and then dying for our sins. So I don't think that he changed, even though he's a part of the Trinity, which God is a part of too. I just think that he expressed his grace for us in a different way than God could, because God can't himself be, he can't change into something finite. Like he has to remain infinite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I said. You can't, because that is like the only thing I can see that can't change in this world. If you believe, if you're a believer. But what else? I mean, we talked about the miscommunication. I mean, what else would be an example of not changing?
I think it's kind of silly, but like change doesn't change. Like change is a constant that you have. It's like it's dependable. Like if anyone wanted to put their bets on anything, it's that whatever they're looking at, they believe in, I say, except aside from Jesus, but like whatever can change will change. And I think if someone believes in that things will change, not as like the highest belief, not as something you can like stake your life on, but if you want to take comfort in something, it's that it will change. And then that way there's no surprises.
So you're saying that change is perpetual?
Yeah, forever. But I think that goes back to what you were saying is like, I'm like stuck on this idea of if you're looking at a tree and it's growing, like you can't see all of it grow because like it's got insides, kind of like we do.
Yes.
I think in that analogy, our insides might be like our personality, our heart, our soul. And what doesn't change is that yeah, it transforms into something new daily or minute by minute, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still a soul and it's yearning to have, I guess, like growth or space to move into, because it can't remain in one solitary state of being just what it was moments ago. Like it has to be something different. And in fact, I use a analogy all the time. Like when I talk to like some people that are feeling down about like where they're at, I'll be like, look, you're like a tree. You have the opportunity to grow, and you will grow no matter what. But do you want to like grow into yourself? Have your arm, like the limbs of your tree, like grow into your body? If so, like don't seek anything new. Don't try to get new knowledge. Don't try to grow spiritually, and you'll do that.
See, I don't know. Even if that, like what you said, don't seek, don't look, don't do. Even if a person stands still, there is change going on regardless. I mean, it might not be with that individual, but it might be that individual's environment that's changing. And you can't stop that.
Mm-mm.
Even if you wanted to, right? The earth is going to spin, hopefully forever. Hopefully for our kids, right? The sun is going to come out, hopefully forever, for our kids. But that even when it comes up, the next, say today, February, the 20th, right? February the 20th, 2019. Well, fast forward to a new year, February 20th, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
2020. That sun is not going to be at that same spot.
No.
It's changed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
So every day, every different calendar is going to be a different thing. We are experiencing new stuff, and it would never. I don't even think if a person had a time machine and was able to go back into time, that time would be changed.
It has to. I can't stand in movies when they show people go back in the past to change something, and then they change something. Like, shouldn't that future self just disappear immediately? There should be no movie.
Agreed.
There shouldn't be a movie. It's already changed.
Yeah, you're right.
Mike, how do you think people get bitter? Why do you think people get bitter?
I think people get bitter because they're, I did a video on this, but just to give you a synopsis, I think because people aren't selfish enough. People need to be selfish instead of being selfless all the time. Now, I'm not saying being selfish 100% of the time, because you still need to think of others, but confidence and happiness only stem from yourself. A person could tell you, I could say, Josh, you're the best photographer, you're the best buddy, friend, whatever title you want. You're the best at it. But you still have to feel that. You have to understand and be able to apply confidence. The confidence can't be obtained through external values, I don't think. It has to be an internal value.
Oh, yeah. If I gave you a compliment and I said, Mike, you're the best hydroponics grower in all the valley, and every business would love to have you grow their produce on top of their roofs. If you didn't believe it, it wouldn't change. It wouldn't change a thing. Not a single thing would be grown.
Right.
And I think that's where, not like I said, not a single thing would change. I think that's where bitterness comes from. I think bitterness comes from having no sort of want to eat, like maybe not want, but maybe like the inability to believe that there's even room to change, that there's room to grow. And I think that we get stuck with an idea that we think would be really good, and then when it doesn't even fail because it doesn't even get launched, then that's when we get bitter. And maybe that's why we get hypocritical. Maybe that's why we got people that like point the finger at others for like the kind of whatever they're doing, and yet they're not even doing that. Like the person pointing the finger is not even. I don't know how to word it.
It's just a miscommunication.
Yeah, like with the self though. It's
intrapersonal. It's an intrapersonal.
Intrapsychic.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it's like an intrapsychic. It's like a message. It's like, I feel like when people are being hypocritical and they're like, "Oh, those freaking Republicans. I wish that they would just, realize that they don't need their guns and that it's just hurting people, or we should open the borders," or something like that. Maybe they're not. Maybe in some, I don't know. I was gonna give an example, but really, I don't have that mindset from that point of view. So I don't really have an example handy. But I do think a hypocritical thing is when someone's like doing something that they think they have the better idea about how to do it, and then, but they've never. I don't know. They're missing the point on something. I don't know what they're missing the point on.
I tell you what they're missing the point on. They're viewing the issue, the problem, as an individualistic situation. When we talk about politics, we got to talk in a collective mindset, because individuals make up the team, but it is a team of individuals. So we have to be able to compromise and talk and use proper and effective communication and apply different strategies to build a real society that isn't compromised by individualistic means.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right, because if I say I have the better way of doing something, the key word in there is I.
Yes. Yes.
Man.
So how can we change that? Not a temporary change, but a permanent change.
Well, to harken back to what we were saying earlier, I think we delineated some elements of change, like what's needed. So like one thing is that we have to work with what's already being we have to work with something that's already a part of the equation, I guess you could say, or a part of the problem towards a solution. So like, I think if we want political change, we need to look at people that are not, maybe that are willing to even work on the problem instead of just saying that it's one person's right and the other's wrong. So we work with the problem, and then we make it not an isolated thing like for an individual, but like welcome people into the group to talk about it. And get everyone thinking like, yeah, we're individuals, but we're also the group. We're a group of individuals, like you said. So like, I don't know. I don't have a clear understanding on how to do it. Like, I think a lot of people just need to reach out and try to speak the same language, even if they're using the same words, like just figure it out. I don't know.
I think we need to stop the segregation, stop the ignorance, and like you said, compare the dialects. Come up with similarities where we both understand, so we could create a mutual understanding of the big picture. It is communication is like vital, man. And it's just one of the biggest mishappenings that society has, is because we're not trying to understand each other. We're just trying to hear each other. So in order to understand each other, we have to look at each other like brothers and sisters, instead of this masked people that we can't see, even though they're 2 feet away from us.
What do you propose that gets someone from hearing to listening?
Love. You have to, but see, then you have to go back to your question. How does, and I'm paraphrasing, okay? How is a person going to be happy, right? How are they going to, I forgot what you said specifically, but it was to that point. And it's to build self-confidence, I believe. That's what you was talking about, right?
Oh, how does someone like find that inner belief as opposed to like just drawing upon like outside, from the outside to believe something like, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
But that we have to build confidence. So I think this is what you always say is a truism, right? We know, and we shouldn't have to mention it, but I will mention it. We have to build the self up first. The self is the individual. How do we build I see it's hard to talk because then it's like, how do you build the self? Then I tell you a couple things. Then how do you do that? Then it comes into a 30-minute segment. But just a short little synopsis. You build the self. The self has to understand who that person is. Then once you build the self, you have to build the awareness of the self. Okay, Mike, that's the same thing. No, it's not. You have to understand who you are. The awareness of the self is the environment the self is in. Okay? So once we understand the self and then we understand the environment, then we can communicate with the environment. Once we have a full concept understanding of that, then we can approach people. I think this is the failure in politics is. One, we study, and I'm talking about your friend that rags on the other political party.
Yeah.
One, your friend studies that side, that only side. They have only entered the realm of number one, the first step, the self. Okay? They study the self. They don't study the environment, because if they study the environment is set with two different types of people. Probably 80,000 types of people, okay? But they don't understand the other party. So they're stuck at the realm of one, which is ignorant to people that's on the realm of two, right? Or three, because they're advanced and they see what's going on in their environment, man. And that's what you pointed out.
I think you articulated that really good. Yeah. I'm on board with that. I'm on board.
And that's why I like to I am a very individualist person, because I think to be a collective society, we have to start with the individual. If you can't bring in a bunch of ignorant people and think you're going to have a great society, it's not going to happen. We have to be selfish. And hopefully through being selfish, we could create a permanent change, not a temporary change. And we could stop the hypocrisy.
I just thought of a question. So we're all people that come from people, obviously. And at what point did we learn like the right amount of selfishness to give to other people so that way they could be successful as individuals as a part of a group? So that way we have a group full of people that are just the right balance of selfless and selfish, and are trying to bring the good for the group of individuals. Like at one point, someone had to have known that, right? Because not everyone could have been just the wrong amount of selfish. Like we've learned from others, like share your toys or stick up for someone that is having a hard time, or
Yes.
or any display of caring for your neighbor, basically. It just seems like I think that maybe the idea of just the individual first, at what point does it bridge with other people?
I think it's a byproduct. To tell you the truth, I think it's a byproduct of our selfishness. And you said, how do you know what do you call that? What do you call that? The equilibrium, right? Of selfishness. What is the equilibrium? There is none. I think, wow, this is going to be very pessimistic, but we are all born worthless until we find our value. And how do we find the value? We help people. Now, if there was, Josh, I will ask you a question. If there was a such thing as equilibrium and the selfishness in order to help people, why will we need to help people? Once we did it once, why would there be a need for continuance?
That's a good question. Right, because if equilibrium was met and there was sort of like peace between selfishness and selflessness, then it should just be that equilibrium. It should just be that peace, and nothing should have to change. So I would agree with you. I don't think any human has ever gotten equilibrium. I think Jesus got equilibrium. And I think that we hop on board the Jesus train when we recognize him as our Savior. And then I think we have the best equilibrium between selfishness and selflessness we can get when we live Christ-like as much as possible. But even then, I'd have to agree with you. I feel like we just don't even know what that is. Like from even within ourselves. I don't think we know it in heart, mind, and body apart from God.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree.
Which is a good question because it just points to like how utterly like in the dark we are about ourselves and other people. Like you said, like we're born kind of worthless in a way. Like where do we find our worth? In helping others and in loving other people. And I think we're all just, I guess, trying to figure out how to do that the best we can.
Yes. We get that feeling. Have you noticed everything? And I'm sure this is a long podcast, but this is a good topic, and I'm glad we're covering it thoroughly. But have you noticed throughout these podcasts that we have done and all these other questions that we have conducted and people responded, have you noticed the intense feeling things are associated with, the depthness that feeling has to the human being? No one could be, Mike, no one could be feelingless. They have to feel something. Even mass shooters feel the urge to kill. I get that. But feeling dictates us tremendously. I mean, more than the cognitive brain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear it, yeah. Yeah, every single person that talks on our message board, on our Facebook group, they're motivated by feeling, one way or the other. And I can't think of any examples right off the bat, but, oh, wait, no, I can. We were talking.
Wait, hold up. Josh, I think we need to make this a 2-part series.
Mike, I think you're right. I think we're gonna have to split this up into 2 episodes.
Isn't that weird?
That's weird. Okay, so what? They're gonna have to wait for the second episode on what you're saying? They're gonna have to wait till the 27th?
To the 27th. Yes. Let them wait.
All right. I think that's weird. It's getting weird in here.
Weird.